But look, we also do a lot of education, and the latest we're getting in our country is indicating that young people, youthful population in northern Ghana and the rest of the country, apparently they've now adopted increasing habits in taking in more narcotics. And this time, they are smoking dried feces, being tiafi, kenakanibiye, and they soak sanitary pads also in water just to drink for what they call vitality. It's the shocking revelation by the Narcotics Control Board. And it's apparently, according to the board, a new trend of drug abuse or narcotic abuse in Ghana. Now, we do have the Upper West Regional Commander of the board, Ishak Bakuru, also giving these startling revelations to Rafiq Salam. But we'll tell you all the latest as Mama Vioso Boaje does a discussion on what needs to be done to stem the tide. Next.
According to the Upper West Regional Commander of the Narcotics Control Board, Isaku Bakuri, they undertook 39 educative programs in the region covering about 7,000 people. He disclosed to the Interior Minister, Ambrose Derry, new shocking trend of substance abuse emerging in the Upper West region and the country at large. Some youth in the country, in their desperate search for vitality over the years, have been pushed into consuming poisonous substances, including various kinds of glue, turpentine, and petrol. But the latest discovery, according to Isaac Bakuri, will make any right-thinking person in the country cringe.
People are now smoking poo-poo. That's bullshit. Shit. They mix the dry shit with marijuana, and according to them, it improves the flavor. And there are others who smoke only the dry poo-poo. They pick the dry poo-poo and they roll it and smoke. Sir, there is even another worrying development, which is the use of the pad, which our sisters use when they are menstruating. Now, the youth go to buy the pad. We are still trying to discover the chemical composition that is in the pad. They will boil the pad, sieve it, and drink it. And others who are unable to buy new pads, they left around in the backyards. When the ladies remove it and throw it away, they pick it, go and boil it, sieve it, and drink.
The Arab stated that they are unable to fight it because there is no legal regime covering the latest craze among the youth.
Now the youth have moved ahead, but this is also an area that we do not have a legal regime covering it. So, apart from education and sensitization, it has become very difficult to enforce any laws against the use of these substances.
Interior Minister Ambrose Derry, however, allayed the fears of the Upper West Commander of NACOP.
And so you appear to be at your wit's end. I don't think you should worry. His Excellency the President has established a Cabinet Subcommittee chaired by a very prominent person from the civil society, which is dealing with drug menace. We have tramadol and others that are now under the law, and therefore I will encourage you and invite you to make a presentation before that committee that will enable them to come out with recommendation that will be comprehensive.
The Interior Minister later met with personnel of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, in the Upper West region.
When you do find that structures are in places that are likely to cause floods, first of all, let your DCs or MCs know about it, and the ICC, and let the police know about it. If need be, we'll move them out before the flood. We're not going to allow them to stay there and die, and then we go around giving buckets and blankets to their dependents.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
So that's the revelation. That's my colleague Rafiq Salam giving us that report. And this unbelievable, still can't find words to put together in reaction of this ever since he first reported this story. But joining me in the studio to have a conversation on the back of that is Mr. Logosua Amegashie. He's head of Addictive Diseases Psychiatric Unit of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Good morning to you. It's good to have you. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here.
I think for many of us hearing that young people will smoke dried feces, like that's unthinkable. Why is this happening?
It's unbelievable. And to me, over the years that I've been practicing as a drug addiction therapist or counselor, I've heard of things being used to get some sort of euphoria. But this particular one came as a shocker. Recently, I went to the social welfare of Medina. I had small boys, 10 years, 12 years, who are using things that you never think of. There are herbs in Ghana that we didn't know that they have psychoactive substances that give them the high, the euphoria. So this is not surprising, but thinking through this thing, especially where they're combining it with cannabis, it means that the people have been using cannabis for some time, and they may have started developing co-occurring disorders. That is mental disorders, secondary to substance use, or the mental disorder is there and it is being exacerbated because of the substances that they are using. That is why they could go ahead and be doing this. Because it's unthinkable. It is not a normal thing. For the female part, the sanitary parts, yes, researchers have indicated that they have some sort of menthol. It's just like smoking London brown cigarette with the menthol. That may be a reason. But as to whether it is used female parts.
This is used
if it's
and
used,
they cook it.
Then there should be no other.
And they drink it for vitality.
I cannot think about any other thing but some sort of mental derailment, because it is highly very abnormal. Yes, it is possible, because when people use these things and they develop these things that they can eat feces and the rest. There's something we call hebephrenic schizophrenia, where people go mad, not necessarily because of this thing, but they go into toilets and do those things. So that could be the only reasonable explanation, that the substances may have created mental derailment. That is why they are doing that.
So let me just bring the head of the mental authority into this conversation, just where you've gotten to. Let's speak to Dr. Akwesi Osei. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Mental Health Authority. Good morning to you, Doc. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Mama V.
I'm not sure how much of this conversation you've heard already, but our colleague filed a report where young people are smoking dried feces and are drinking water from boiled sanitary pads for vitality. Now, that's not normal, is it?
Not exactly normal. Not exactly normal, but at the same time, too, it's not exactly strange, because you know them to be practicing various kinds of things. When you get addicted because you've taken substances, and those substances have influenced your brain function, so your brain is not functioning as it normally should. And it gets to a certain point that the high you get from the substances, that high is not enough. And you want to find something more. That is where the experimentation comes in. So they try all kinds of things. They send information around them and try all kinds of things. It works for somebody, that becomes a reason for others to try it. Until this very episode came, that they're using, we have known that they've been using, some people go and stand behind the toilet, and the fume that comes out, they inhale it, and they get excited. Some people stand near the filling stations, and the fume that comes out of the fuel, the diesel, and the petrol, they inhale it, and they get excited. Some people use the droppings of lizard, the white of it. They inhale it, and they get excited. Others, chicken droppings. They inhale it, they get excited. So all kinds of things. Lacquer, which carpenters use. They inhale it, cutis. So all kinds of things. So it's not that exactly surprising that their experimentation has got to this point.
Do we need, because, you know, in this report that was filed, we had the Upper West Regional Commander of NACOP, Ishak Bakuri, who said there was no law around this particular trend. So how do they stop it? So I want to ask, as a professional, is this something we can curb?
Well, to start with, we need to do some more work to get the extent of the problem. We need to study that to know the extent. So what if that is good? It's brought out an issue, and we need to study the issue to know the extent of the problem. Laws are made to curtail problems that are there, and not to anticipate problems. So if we do the study and we realize that that is the magnitude, we can find a way. However, until then, the issue is that it is an addiction. And addiction, we have the responsibility to treat addiction as a problem, medical problem, and solve it. Every case of addiction is a medical problem. And that's why some of us have been arguing that, for instance, when somebody holds a joint of weed because he is addicted, and you say, let's take him to jail, we think it's a wrong approach. We need to recognize that this person has a medical problem, and so let's treat him. So the point I'm making here is that law or no law, we need to recognize the implications, the medical implications, the fact that they are addicted to it, and so they are hooked onto it against their will, they use it, and we need to treat them, because otherwise then other complications of addiction will set in.
Stay with me a bit longer, Doc, if you can, because I also have in the studio Mr. Loboso Amegashie. He's head of Addictive Diseases Psychiatric Unit of Hollywood Teaching Hospital. We started this conversation. So that's the mental angle to, because you said this could be possibly a mental issue.
Yes, Dr. Osei has rightly said it. And there should be, it needs to be interrogated the more, like he has indicated. The report is out. It is now left to us to go see what really is happening. There's a need for the assessment of such people who are doing this thing to confirm whether they have mental derailment or otherwise, because it is absolutely abnormal for these things to be happening.
But you're also making revelations of very young people smoking things that we didn't think could be smoked.
Yes, I don't have the botanical name for those leaves. In my area, the one of them that they showed, we call it Boloba. And I cannot, but they were telling me that it gives them the euphoria, the high. The high. That
so
was
they smoke it dry or?
As to whether they smoke it dry, I didn't quiz that one very well. But I was just stunned.
Why would very young people do this?
Most of these people that I met at the social welfare this thing are street children who had traveled all along, and they are near the National Theatre and those places. And then there's an NGO that is taking care of them. So they have taken them to a shelter where I was made to have a chat and interaction with them. That was when I was getting this revelation. So things are being done. We are not actually having the details of what is going on. Traditionally, we have other things that we call pica. People taking ayilo. You will not.
No, ayilo doesn't make you high, does it?
I don't know. I have not used it before, but the users would have to tell me whether it gives them a high, because they can sit down, get water, and chew.
We thought traditionally this was pregnant. Some pregnant women
use them.
Exactly.
But it is not necessarily only pregnant women. You see, people who are not pregnant, they rely on it. And charcoal, these are pica. There are people who are relying on ice cubes, freeze ice cubes. So there are so many forms of addictions. Ice cubes dependency is called phagophagia. Lots of things you can imagine. So there's a problem. But the challenge, however, is why is the target the youth? They are the future leaders of this country. And anybody who is dependent upon drugs is not efficient at work. He cannot work. So if nothing is done about it, if it is not interrogated very well and remedies provided, the future of this country is bleak.
Let me just ask Dr. Kwesi Osei, if you're still with us, hopefully you are. How do we stop this? Because I'm thinking that there could be specific things that people do in their specific areas. So, you know, we all talked about tramadol, but that was not the only substance drug that people were abusing. People do all sorts of things in their small areas. How do we generally stop this?
Yeah, I'm still there. Yeah, thank you. So we need a lot of education. And the education should not be targeted at any one thing, because you get them to stop that very thing, they will substitute another. So education generally against getting off or getting high on substances of any kind. That is very important. So you need to embark on this education in the schools, age group targeted, schools, workplaces, youth, any means by which you can get them. And we need to involve a lot of stakeholders. So teachers, employers, and variously. Once we get the public to be educated, and then they will know the dangers and stay away from them, then they will not experiment any new thing. That's very important.
Can we think about why they are possibly also doing this?
A lot of it is peer pressure. Peer pressure. And if they are sitting there idle doing nothing, then the peer pressure influences them. You see, the point is that up to age 28, you are impressionable. The brain is still developing. The brain, the part of the brain that often is involved in decision making, we call the forebrain, which is somewhere behind our forehead. That part is the part that takes longest to develop. And 25, 28, that is when it develops. Until then, you are impressionable. Anything can just move you to any direction, because you have not been able to form your judgment properly. And often that is the age group that is influenced by their peers to move into this. They get misinformation. Somebody tells you, you take it, you get high, and you are able to talk to girls, you are able to study, stay awake and study. A little bit of truth in the sense that you get high, but they don't tell them the consequences. And frankly, nobody also abuses or begins to abuse drugs with the intention of getting addicted, with the intention of getting hooked. He starts and gets hooked, and then he cannot get out. So that is where we need to do a lot more of public education, so they will recognize what is happening and stay away from them.
I'm just thinking, because, you know, we talk about public education, Ms. Amegashie, we deal with one and then they go to another, or one is not getting them high enough, so they add something else, and then is it helping? Is what we're doing helping? Is the conversations helping?
It's helping, but you should not leave it at that.
Sorry.
To start with, it should not be only one-off. We need to continue it. And then not only media engagement. There is enough study, research, that shows that media alone, it will pass through one ear and move out to the other. Somebody listening to us does not have the opportunity to ask the questions and pull up questions that will help to remove all his doubts and clear his mind properly. So such a person, he will not benefit much. And then again, even if he benefits, you need to repeat it a number of times. Then it stays. You forget some, that some will remain. So in addition to the media engagement, public education on the media, we also need to move to them one-on-one at their schools, at their workplaces, at their homes, at the marketplaces, at the churches. Then you can engage them fully.
Whose mandate is that?
Sorry?
Whose mandate is that?
Well, the mental health authority, and not only as we need to organize, but then it means somebody needs to give the resources. Media engagement, media giving as your time, that will be media's mandate to offer us the time. But if you have to go and pay every time to get the education of the media, then that becomes a challenge. And frankly, we are also not adequately resourced.
When you talk about resources as the mental health authority,
financial, we are not getting the financial resources to help, because where you need to get your staff to go, transportation, you need to organize the students, the people, you need to get some refreshments for them so that you can catch their attention. Various components of the engagement, the media, the education, you will require some financial support. You need to make flyers to give to them so that when you are gone, they'll be reading and get education.
So everything is money, really. Money. Okay, let me bring Mr. Amegashie, because you wanted to say something.
Now, I just wanted to emphasize what he's saying about education. In fact, in the schools, just yesterday, the Hopefully Foundation is an NGO that is responsible for substance use disorders management, treatment, rehabilitation, and prevention. We were at a discussion and we are thinking that yes, we go to the schools, but I think the school authorities, the school counselors, and some of the teachers will need to have some trainings and to be equipped with skills to easily identify young ones who have started using.
After all, they are much closer to them.
Yes, from the JSS to the secondary schools, they should be given those basic training as to how to see somebody who's just started using cannabis, tramadol, so that they could help them out. And the issue of punishment for those who may have been using should be changed. They should be helped in a way that it is not considered a moral deviation. They are spoken to so that they can volunteer information on this. So that it's just like the student just have to tell the teacher that I'm feeling feverish, I have headache. Yeah, the student should have that liberty or freedom or without fear to go and say that, yes, sir, I have been smoking cigarette. But per the education that we are giving us now, I think I need to stop, but I cannot stop. And that should not go for punishment, suspension, or anything. The person should just be referred to the appropriate intervention so that they are helped. When that education goes on very well with the school teachers and the rest. I remember some time ago, in some schools in Ghana, some about 10 students at the same time were dismissed from 2 different schools. They were brought to the addictive diseases unit. I managed to talk to the headmasters and they gave them the opportunity to go back. And they did stop. They were coming for routine checkups and then we were screening the urine and the rest. And eventually they understood. So students from those schools are no longer dismissed. So that is one area that we need to look at it. There is another area that is the problem, where addiction is perceived as a spiritual or demonic possession, and that there is an exogenous factor responsible, where parents take hook onto those beliefs and find it very difficult to deal with them, to the extent that they have taken away the responsibility of their wards or their children, because the children also know that's a soft spot. The children know that, yes, my parents also know that it is not me, it's somebody else who is responsible. So they don't make the effort to quit using. When those things are addressed, when we start to talk and help some of our clergy have education or professional education in substance use disorders, then they will be of help, because most of the cases that come and they are difficult for us to treat are those that are being recycled to believe that somebody else is responsible for their disease. So it's a fight that the church would have to take, the schools would have to take up. Parents must be given the opportunity to appreciate this thing very well so that it becomes a holistic approach. Unfortunately, in some of the institutions of health, there are different approaches, and we are not in agreement as to what really is the case.
So this is your approach.
This is our...
you talk about the school, the church, the home.
Yeah, the school, the church, the home, and the government, like Dr. Osei spoke about, the government. The resources are very necessary. In fact, we don't have very standard rehabilitation centers that could talk about prevention. NACOP is doing well, but we still think that it should be resourced. There should be more training of experts, addiction professionals. We are having annually...
How many are you?
Because currently, including Dr. Osei, I just asked yesterday, and I hear from the top of the head of the person, it's about 73 people who are...
The entire country?
The entire country, and who have been trained and they are certified as international addiction professionals. 73. But they are of different professions before they have this additional addiction profession. So the numbers are
that's even different from those who are actually practicing?
Including those are practicing. Yes, including those are practicing.
So let me ask, because you come up with very important interventions. Let me ask Dr. Osei, what do you make of it? He talks about taking that punishment out so that students and pupils can openly tell their teachers that they are on a certain drug and they are addicted and they need help, they can't stop. He talks about the church and then school authorities also getting proper training. What do you make of his suggestions?
Oh, that's me, eh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, that's right. They are very important. And that is why we have been, I don't know whether I've made this point earlier, but that is why we've been talking about decriminalizing addiction for addictive behavior. So when somebody is addicted, let's not first look at him as being a criminal, but let's first look at him as having a medical problem.
But that hasn't changed, Doc. We've talked about this for years. It is still there.
Well, you know, things don't change overnight. You need to push and push. Just as this education, it won't change things overnight. But you need to keep pushing so that it remains on the front burner. Then the lawmakers, the policymakers will begin to appreciate.
But let me ask, Doc, sorry to just cut you on this. Sure. If we were not criminalizing it, do we have enough facilities to take care of all these people that we send to prison? Can we rehabilitate them?
So the point is that one intervention is not enough. You need to combine various interventions. So as we are decriminalizing, we are also establishing, we need to establish the facilities, we need to train the personnel, and this is what Mr. Lagos is talking about. So we need to put all together. If you look at them as exclusive, no one approach is enough. No one approach is enough. You need to put them all together. All until recently, government's efforts have all been towards what we call reducing the supply availability, supply reduction. And that is by punishing people who do it, making sure that we don't have it on the market, destroying. All that is only one aspect. You need to complement it with the reduction in the demand. Somebody recognizes that it may be there, but I don't need it, so I won't go for that. And these are the various components of the demand reduction. The education, the recognizing that they have an illness and treating them, the rehab centers, a lot of them. We need to have a collective plan and support. Then we can get there. We are not doing badly. We are nowhere near what the situation of addiction is in America, the Colombia, and whatnot. But we don't want to get it near, because if you get there, you won't have the resources to deal with them.
Now, you talk about media education not having the other side, so there can't be follow-up. So I want to activate the phone lines, and I want to encourage people to also send us messages so I can pass it across. I've got two professionals on this conversation, so they can help you out if you've got any follow-ups to make. You're probably a parent, and Mr. Logosu, Mr. Amegashie, let me ask, if you're a parent and you suspect, because you've just talked about the churches, parents not making it a religious issue and not resorting to the churches or other religious means. How can a parent, because it's heartbreaking if you found out that your child was doing something like this. What's the first point of call? What must you do?
Now, just like Doc is talking about, the media must help, like providing this thing. And in fact, you need money to always be doing marketing our education. From the parental point of view, I think schools are now virtually run by PTAs, Parent Teachers Associations. When we have times that we go meet this group and we educate them, it will actually lessen their anxiety and their shock when these things start to happen.
But how many parents actually attend the PTA meetings? These
days there are rules. They are attending because the attendance is there. They are attending. In fact, in my old school, and where my children are now, they are attending. At least if they don't attend, they will have some information on this thing. It could be done if the interaction with parents is improved, so that the first call should not necessarily be to the pastors. The pastors are there. As human beings, we need spiritual uplifting.
And we need spiritual healing too.
So we can't rule out completely, but you give to Caesar what is Caesar's. So when it's drug addiction, the professionals are there. You could back it up with your prayers or whatever. So the education.
So what's your call? It shouldn't be your first point of call shouldn't be church.
If not necessarily, pastors can also help. If a student is a congregant, one of the congregants of a particular church, and he feels comfortable communicating this to a pastor, my call is that a pastor, after praying, must get him or her referred to the addiction professionals.
Okay.
Because we have had instances where these people are even sent to camps. You know of that, where they are chained and they whip them demon out of them. There are a lot of things that have happened because people do not know what they need to do. You understand? So like I said earlier on, The media should be motivated financially, resourced financially, to continue regular, if anything, daily for all the media, from the radios, the TVs, and everything daily, if it is possible. And then it should be part, if it's possible, it should be part of the school curriculum. From
As
the
in
JSS.
mental health education?
Yes,
or,
on substance
or
use disorder.
substance.
Yes, it's all inclusive.
Okay.
So that people will be able, because there are some childhood disorders that are actually implicated in later development of substance use disorders. There are so many reasons why people use drugs, like peer influence. That is the one that we find in Ghana very, very much is the highest. The predisposition to starting to use drugs. Negative peer influence is one.
Yeah. Dr. Akwesi say we're going to take a quick break and come back. But you heard the call to fund media so we can keep talking about this. And I thought this is directly to the authority. But stay with us. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with your questions and your comments. We'll activate the phone lines as well. You're watching the AM Show. Thank you for staying with us here on the AM Show. We're talking substance abuse just before the break. And this conversation is coming on the back of Rafiq Salam's report, the revelation that some young people are smoking dried feces and they're actually boiling sanitary pads and drinking as for vitality. Unbelievable. We thought we'll have a full-blown conversation on the back of that. So in the studio is Mr. Logos Amegashie. He's head of addictive diseases psychiatric unit, Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. And we've also been talking to the CEO of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Akwesi Osei, who's been joining us via phone. Right now, we're just going to be taking some of your messages because lots of messages coming through. We'll let Dr. Akwesi Osei would leave at some point, so maybe you can address some of the questions real quick before he leaves. This one says the issue of substance abuse is worrying. In my area, teenagers resort to mixing milk with weed and sell to their clients as sweet. People abuse cold patch perfumes and even soak in rusted metals and drink its content. It's from Ian Mahama from Tamale. Nyohini sending that WhatsApp message. This one says, I think this is the height of frustration among young people, especially school dropouts. The solution is in the education of the youth and the provision of avenues for vocational training and their engagement in sporting activities. You didn't add your name, but thank you for sending. This one says, Saint Josh from Kwapong Methodist GHS in the Ahafo region. Substance abuse is on the increase and parents are not willing to partner with teachers to curb it. The guest in the studio says, parents attend PTA. To me, it doesn't happen in your area, so that's not quite maybe in your old school, but not in other places. Michael from Sola in Savannah region says this is not normal. In fact, NACOP needs to arrest this situation immediately going on in the Upper West region. This one says, I lived in South Africa and some drug addicts mix weed and rats or mouse poison before smoking it. Anything goes with drug addicts. Nana Kwesi in Techiman sending this as well. This one says I'm not surprised at all about the finding because this is the life the youth of today do to always keep themselves high. Do you ask yourself why is it that the current youth we have are very violent and okay, so you're talking about morals here. With regards to telling their teachers, they won't, my sister. They would rather be thinking of how to lynch any teacher who chants on them undergoing this act. Okay, thanks a lot for that message. This one says, this is Jeffrey from Asamankese. You're speechless, you say. How is this possible to snip dry feces, sanitary pads? I think it's the time for our celebrities, bloggers, and social media addicts to influence. Okay, all right. This one says, this education is good, but to me, some things are not spiritual, but character, and character has no medication except word, and that is why counseling and some pastors got it wrong. Oh, okay. So the latter part, but I get your message. Lots of messages will come to that. I just want to give Dr. Osei the opportunity to react to some of the messages that have come through. And my thoughts about right now in Accra, because this is where I am, Doc. If I feel I want to speak to someone, if I'm addicted to something and I need help, where should I go?
Yeah, thank you. To start with, right now we've sensitized all health professionals about mental health issues, about drug issues. So you can speak to any mental health professional, and if he is not specifically equipped in drug addiction, for instance, if he's not among the 73 specifically trained in addiction management, then he can forward you. So any health facility, you can always approach that health facility, and eventually you'll be forwarded to where you can get your definitive treatment. That is one. Somebody also talked about other kinds of preparations that are being used. That is exactly the experimentation. Once they start with something, they get to a certain point, the high they get is not enough, that they want to try other things. So they will experiment anything, and somebody said, as for an addict, will do anything. So that experimentation is at the bottom of it all, that we need to make sure that we break the desire for drugs, for anything that gives them high, so that they will stay away from that. Then the resourcing, very important. We need to resource Narcotics Control Board, Mental Health Authority, so together we will liaise. You talked about media support earlier. Well, I thought the media, you are well adequately resourced. We are asking for your corporate social responsibility to be used in the
we also need campaign. Financial resources. We also need help, you know.
You are probably better on the NACOP and Mental Health Authority. But we need to together put our hands together and see what we can do. Of course, if you get more, you also extend some to you. This also brings in the cost a little remote, but not exactly. If you have a mental health levy established, as everybody in the country is contributing to the levy, then we'll have enough funds which we can use to support all the various organizations.
Where are we with that?
We are not, well, a little far. Now, at least, you know, we have passed the airline legislative instrument. It's been passed, thank God. So we are moving. The next thing now is to engage, and we are engaging the Ministry of Finance for them to establish that. So not too far from now, I'm sure that a time will come, you will get that understanding that we need to establish it.
Okay. Dr. Osei, thank you so much. Hopefully we can have a one-on-one conversation sometime in the near future. That's the CEO of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Akwesi Osei. But Ms. Amegashie, you have some recommendations, some things that you're thinking could help.
Yes. We're looking at the stakeholders to start to address these substance use disorders and its ramifications. And I am thinking that all constituencies nationwide, all the constituencies that we have, I don't know the number of constituencies that we have now.
We have 200 and, Roland, how many constituencies? 275?
275, I know. If all constituencies, all parliamentarians who are in those constituencies can use part of their common fund to have rehabilitation centers, so that we have one constituency, one rehabilitation center. Because, and then if the education goes on, then people can have access to intervention. People will be trained, like the trainings are going on. Yeah, in Israel, all the metropolitan assemblies like AMB and the health unit has a table there that people work to report their substance use disturbances. So if we have, and it all boils down to the education to recite people to perceive addiction as a disease rather than a moral deficiency. So when that is done, then we will say that we are getting somewhere. The need for education must continue. Like tomorrow morning, if you have 5 minutes, or you have a caption that is talking on your screen that is talking about drug addiction, or what you need to do about drug addiction, showing for 2 minutes, and every time it's coming, and it's done in all the studio in Ghana, and that will be part of the things that but it is very necessary. We train more people, we get people educated, and then we can get somewhere. The resources.
Do we have enough, because you talked about the rehabilitation, what is in a rehabilitation center?
Yes, like one of the commentators indicated, the actual crux of treatment is on counseling. That's the talk therapy we always emphasize.
Okay.
When people come into your facility as a drug addiction unit, you basically will do some family interaction, do some assessments, screen to be sure of the substances that the person is using. You assess the mental status of the person. If there is nothing, if there are medical complications, those things are handled first. But for the sustainability of the sobriety, if the person is supposed to stay off drugs for a long time, the person needs to go through drug counseling.
Okay.
And it's a process. It's not 1 day, 2 days or so. It's a very long process. And there are different protocols that you can apply depending upon your assessment. But one of the international ones is the 12 steps facilitation therapy. Like the Alcoholic Anonymous meetings and the Narcotics Anonymous meeting. After treatment, the person continues. We have them in
Do we
Ghana.
have that here?
Yeah, we have them in Ghana. In the addictive diseases unit, we have our NA meetings on Monday from 9 o'clock, and people come from outside America, Kenya, and everywhere. It's international.
Okay.
And we have
But this
today,
happens at Kolibu?
Yes, at the addictive disease. Today, for example, from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, we have our Alcoholic Anonymous meeting.
Okay.
And it's happening in the Accra Psychiatric Hospital. It's happening on the campus of University of Ghana. It's happening at Clementina in Ashama.
Okay.
SNIT Hospital. So many places. They are springing up.
So this is just like we see in the movies. It's nobody's judging anybody. You're just talking about
and sharing your experiences and people,
your challenges.
Yes. Self-disclosure as a way of therapy for new people that are coming. So there's that sort of self-disclosure and how you did it. So those who are now journeying where you have passed would try to emulate you. Okay. So we talk of sponsors, a senior person in recovery who, after sharing, you would have seen that you have gone through the same things with him. So you ask, how did you do it? And then you are. So, and it does well for those who have only substance use disorder, those who don't have any mental condition attached to it, because people have substance use disorders with co-occurring disorders. They have some other things.
I've got about 5 minutes to wrap up this conversation. So you can give me a call real quick. When you call, kindly make it very brief so we can take a lot of calls. Bin Dao in Bibiani is joining us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for reaching out. Let's hear you.
Yes, our leaders have to take a second look at it, because the policies and programs that they have formulated so far, it seems it has failed, and it is on the ascendancy. So I think that there should be national stakeholders coming together to find out actually how to tackle it, so that whether as they have been tackling it through positions and whatever, or they should tackle it on a legal basis, so that when we are caught, serious punishment should be given to deter others from engaging.
You are still thinking the punishments. All right, I get you. Thank you very much for your call. You can also give us a call right now. My guest in the studio is Mr. Logoso Amegashie. He's head of addictive diseases psychiatric unit, the Kolibu Teaching Hospital. Mr. Amegashie, talk to me more about this. So this is what group therapy, I can call it.
It's one of the group therapies. What happens is that it is a non-judgmental sort of meeting. They do their own things. We call it group conscience. We have agreed that our meeting is a non-smoking meeting, because there are some people who are doing AA, Alcoholic Anonymous, and then they allow people to smoke cigarette. They don't see cigarette as a problem. So in that group, people smoke. But there are some group who have as a collective decision, no smoking, no drugs in any form, non-smoking, and it's all registered.
And these are their own rules?
Their own rules.
Okay.
So when you enter, there's a chairman of the meeting, and it rotates. There's a secretary, and they contribute to provide literature, because it's all about literature, books, tapes, and things that you share.
And these are all persons recovering or trying to recover. Let's speak to Joseph.
They are in recovery.
Joseph is joining us from Amegashie South. Joseph, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, madam.
Yes, sir. Thank you for reaching out. Let's hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to contribute to the program. I think the rate at which this drug abuses is going on in this country is so alarming. And I believe the root cause is, one of it is poverty. Because some of the young guys, they grow up, they are unable to continue education, and then they are frustrated. So whenever that come on their way, they find a way of keeping themselves calm and sort of such things. So it enables them to abuse so many things that they are not known of. Because at the North West, the report has come. When you go there, most of the guys who are not able to continue education, they don't have any meaningful job. They roam around. And as a young guy roaming around without a job, they think of getting something to make yourself calm somewhere. So they find all means of ways to go into those drugs abuse. I hope the government should put a policy like this village, one village, one dam, if it were well planned. And then they could have get some, like this guy is in doing job, and then nobody will engage him or herself into those things. So most of the root causes is poverty.
Okay, so Joseph, we all have received great education this morning. So I want to ask you, as an individual in your community, after this education, if you found somebody smoking or you suspect, what can you do to help?
Yeah, what
are you willing to do?
As I'm talking now, I'm a teacher.
Okay.
So I sometimes, most of the time, I educate my children at the JHS level, and then we sensitize them. But it's a big problem all over, especially the mining areas and all stuff. It's a problem.
Okay.
It's a problem.
All right. We will start solving them, little by little. We'll get there. Joseph, thank you very much for your time. Unfortunately, that's all the calls that I can take at this point. Mr. Amegashie, very last words in some few seconds.
I listened to one of the commentators and he's saying that punishment, far from that. We apologize, seriously, because some people have a genetic predisposition to get used to drugs. So how do you, just like somebody who has sickle cell disease, the person is born of an alcoholic family, from an alcoholic family. He has the genes responsible for alcohol on some chromosomes, so the first trial can get him move on until he gets hooked onto the drug. How do you see that? There are some drugs that people get used to just because they were used to treat them, like injection petidine for people who have cesarean sections, pain and the rest. How do you deal with that? The person is a victim of treatment. How do you deal with that? Your son goes to school and is deceived that when you smoke cannabis, you are going to have an improvement in your intellectual capacity. Do you eventually punish that person? You don't have to. And then this argument, yes, poverty is known to be an expose to people using drugs, but it is not always true. Okay. Some people have everything that it takes, but they still use drugs.
We will continue to talk about it and do the education. We will consider the suggestion of sharing something every day. But thank you so much for your time, and I do hope that when we call on you again, you share your expertise with us. I hope that we've all gained, one little knowledge. So let's begin to make impact in our own little ways. Coming up next here on the AM show, we've got an exclusive interview with the wife of the Vice President, Samira Bawumia, on her work, JoyNews' campaign Arrival Live, and her joy moments as the multimedia group celebrate 25 years. Enjoy this conversation.